Look around you right now. There's probably a USB cable on your desk, one in your bag, one plugged into a charger, and somehow they all look similar, but they don't do the same thing. USB was supposed to be universal. Instead, we got a naming system that feels like it was designed to confuse people on purpose. Let's finally untangle it. In the next few minutes, I'll break down every major USB version from USB 1.0 to USB 4, explain the connector types you've actually used, and show you why USB naming went completely off the rails. The beginning. USB 1.0 and 1.1. USB stands for Universal Serial Bus, and when it launched in the mid-90s, the goal was simple: replace the mess behind every PC. Serial ports, parallel ports, PS2, game ports, one cable to rule them all. USB 1.0 launched in 1996 with two speeds, low speed at 1.5 megabytes per second and full speed at 12 megabytes per second. That was fine for keyboards and mice, but useless for storage or media. It also introduced two connector types that still matter today: Type A, the flat rectangle on your computer, and Type B, the chunky square used on printers. USB 1.0 was buggy, so USB 1.1 arrived in 1998. Same speeds, same connectors, but finally reliable. This is when USB started showing up everywhere. The mainstream era, USB 2.0. This is where USB became a big deal. USB 2.0 launched in 2000 and jumped to 480 megabytes per second. That's 40 times faster than USB 1.1. Suddenly, external hard drives, flash drives, cameras, and MP3 players made sense. This era also introduced mini USB, the trapezoid connector you probably remember from early cameras and phones. USB 2.0 was so good that it dominated for over a decade. Even today, a shocking number of devices still run on USB 2.0 speeds. The speed era and the naming disaster. USB 3.0. In 2008, USB 3.0 arrived with a massive jump to 5 gigabytes per second, 10 times faster than USB 2.0. These ports were usually blue and added extra pins for higher bandwidth. This is also when micro USB took over smartphones, replacing mini USB. Everything was fine until the renaming started. USB 3.1. In 2013, USB 3.0 was renamed USB 3.1 Gen 1, and a new faster version was introduced as USB 3.1 Gen 2 at 10 gigabytes per second. So now, USB 3.1 Gen 1 equals 5 gigabytes per second, USB 3.1 Gen 2 equals 10 gigabytes per second. Same cables, similar names, instant confusion. USB 3.2. Then it got worse. USB 3.2 reshuffled everything again. USB 3.2 Gen 1 equals 5 gigabytes per second, USB 3.2 Gen 2 equals 10 gigabytes per second, USB 3.2 Gen 2 times 2 equals 20 gigabytes per second using 2 lanes. Same underlying tech, new names, completely broken marketing. Most manufacturers gave up and started using labels like Superspeed 10 gigabytes to just survive. The connector revolution. USB Type-C. Now forget speed for a second. USB Type-C changed everything physically. Type-C is small, reversible, and symmetrical. No more flipping the cable 3 times before it fits. Phones, laptops, tablets, consoles, everything started moving to Type-C. But here's the key thing people miss. USB-C is just the connector shape. It does not tell you the speed. A USB-C cable could be USB 2.0 at 480 megabytes per second, USB 3.2 at 20 gigabytes per second, USB 4 at 40 gigabytes per second. You cannot tell by looking. Type-C also introduced USB power delivery, which now supports up to 240 watts. That's enough to power laptops, monitors, and even some desktops. On top of that, Type-C can carry video using DisplayPort Alt Mode or Thunderbolt, one cable for charging, display, and data. The downside is cable quality. Some USB-C cables are charge only. Some do data, some do video, some do all three, and most people don't realize this until something doesn't work. The modern era, USB 4. USB 4 launched in 2019 and is based on Thunderbolt 3, which Intel made royalty-free.
It supports up to 40 gigabytes per second, mandatory USB-C connectors, smarter bandwidth sharing between data and video, and backwards compatibility with USB 3, USB 2, and Thunderbolt 3. Later branding updates gave us USB 4 20 gigabytes, USB 4 40 gigabytes, and USB 4 80 gigabytes, announced in 2023 under USB 4 version 2.0. Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt uses the same USB-C connector but follows stricter rules. Thunderbolt 3 equals 40 gigabytes per second, Thunderbolt 4 equals 40 gigabytes per second but stricter cable and display requirements, and Thunderbolt 5 equals 80 gigabytes per second. Thunderbolt cables often work with USB 4 devices, and USB 4 cables often work with Thunderbolt, but not always. Specs still matter. Connector types quickly. Here's every connector you've probably used. Type A, classic rectangle. Type B, old printer square. Mini USB, early cameras and phones. Micro USB, smartphones from 2010 to around 2020. And USB-C, modern standard. There were weird ones like micro USB 3.0, but most of those are gone now. USB went from 1.5 megabytes per second in the 90s to 80 gigabytes per second today. The tech improved massively, the naming did not. The good news is USB-C is slowly unifying everything. The bad news is you still need to read the specs because not all USB-C cables are equal. What's the most annoying USB cable you've ever owned? Drop it in the comments. And if this finally made USB make sense, like and subscribe for more tech explained properly.